There are no real rock stars anymore. That is according to Buckcherry frontman Josh Todd, who was very candid during a recent conversation where he spelled out in pretty epic fashion where he thinks rock is, why he thinks that is, and this is certainly going to ruffle some feathers. Now, there are points that I'm going to acknowledge that I disagree with him on, and there's some points that I really agree with him on. But most importantly, I respect him being candid, and I respect his opinion because he's a veteran of this game, and he's had a lot of success. And when people talk from a point of experience, I listen, whether I agree with everything they say or not. But we need to have some real conversations about rock. We need to be able to talk about how we can get this genre off the ground, how we can elevate this genre and get it to where it needs to be. And right now there is a lacking. And we're going to look at some of the reasons why that might be. And I'm also going to share some thoughts on this that I've never shared on this channel before about my view of rock and what rock is and what rock is today and how in some ways I think rock is actually very much miscategorized. And some of you might not agree with me. I'm just expressing my opinion. So don't get pissed at me because I'm just telling you how I feel. But look, before we continue, I would like to let you know also we got a little giveaway going on right here. One lucky winner and 3 of their friends are going to party in style at VIP all weekend long at one of these amazing festivals. And the winner will get to pick. And you probably got some pretty damn good chances. All you got to do is go down and enter to win. The link in the description. It takes just a second. So Josh Todd, Buckcherry, they've had some amazing success over the course of their career. They've written songs like Crazy Bitch. They've written songs like Lit Up. This band, for me, is pretty much known where they're more so, they're in your face, they're pretty edgy, they bring the party, and their music is really, a lot of it is about having fun and getting wild and getting crazy. And so very much, Josh Todd is very much a real rock star, and I'm sure he's lived a real rock star life. So when he talks, I listen. I listen to the veterans of this game, and I think that he is speaking, again, from a place of experience. So I don't have to agree with everything he says. I don't agree with everything anybody says. But I respect what he's saying, and I respect a guy who obviously loves this music, who is willing to come out and talk about it in a way where he thinks it could be better. And I damn sure agree on that. So this is what he said. He was on the Logan show, and they were talking about the state of rock, which is always an important conversation. And by the way, Josh Todd of Buckcherry, you're welcome here anytime you want, dude. I respect your career and everything you've done. And so he said, rock is just not dangerous. And when I say dangerous, I don't mean using foul language or that kind of stuff. There's no one separating the pack. Back in the day, there were bands that every kind of band had personalities, and they were all separate from each other because of that, even though they were in one genre of music. I can give a good example. The last decade, there were real rock stars, was the 90s. I mean, look how many amazing frontmen you had. You had Lane Staley, Chris Cornell, Kurt Cobain, Eddie Vedder, Zach De La Rocha. And all these guys were just in a league of their own, and every one of those bands were different. So when you heard them, you knew it was them. And I don't know, since like 2000, it hasn't been like that on rock radio. You kind of, and I need to take notes on that because I'm analyzing this in real time and you guys are all watching. Now look, so let's continue because that gave me a thought I want to get to. So he goes, look, you listen to any kind of new rock radio, and it sounds like, to me, this is just my opinion, it sounds like one consecutive band for like 45 minutes, and you don't know who anyone is, and you don't know anybody's name, and there's no kind of guitar heroes, and there's no frontmen, and the lyrics, I don't know. It's kind of, in my opinion, G-rated. I don't feel like anybody's connecting to their audience in an honest way. I don't know. Maybe they are. I think really the last band to do that was Rage Against the Machine. I really liked them a lot. I wish they put out a lot more records, but they don't. And so he said similar comments a couple of years ago on a podcast called White Line Fever. And he basically says, as far as rock is concerned, I think since the 2000s, it's been forgettable. Not that the bands aren't good and not that they're not putting out songs. There's definitely been careers started after 2000s in rock music, but it's kind of like faceless. There's no rock stars. There's no guitar stars. There's no rock singers. Again, if you look at the 90s, he talks about Chris Cornell, Lane Staley, Eddie Vedder, Jonathan Davis. And he goes, and then the 2000s and on, I can't even tell you who a singer is. It's so weird. I think it's because it became this active rock movement where everything is tuned down and cut to grid, and everybody's playing their samples live, and the singers, they sing the same. So they all listen to active rock radio, and it sounds like the same band for 45 minutes. There's no dynamics between bands. There's no, oh, that's this band and that's that band, and they all have their own little flavor. It's just not that way anymore. And I think that's why nobody's talking about rock music in the mainstream. I disagree with that. There's literally one band that they go to commercially if they want to fill that rock slot on some award shows or anything, and it's the Foo Fighters. That's it. That's what you get for the entire rock genre, and that's good for them. But if you are a rock musician, that's tough. So those are Josh Todd's very robust and sincere thoughts on rock music. And again, me disagreeing with him is not having absolute appreciation for what he had to say, because I love the candor there. And I mostly agree with him, by the way. And so we're going to talk about the ways I do agree with him. We're going to talk about some of the things I don't agree with. But I love that he's saying this, because we do need to have these conversations. It's so important for anybody that loves rock. You should want rock to be the absolute best that rock can be. And so, first of all, let's address the concept of rock being dangerous. And I would suggest to him that rock music itself isn't dangerous, but neither is literally every facet of our society. The film industry has been wrecked by the way the world has become very much sanitized and safe. And I don't mean literally safety, but I mean, we're living in a very high time of judgment, where before, like if you were just on MTV and you were crazy, people might be talking shit about you at home, but now you got to contend with social media, and there's all these pressure campaigns and stuff like that. So everyone's kind of being reserved. Everyone is holding back, and it's terrifying, I think, to people to come out and go, this is what I think, this is fucked up or whatever. And I think that people really very much today in rock music are going to try to appeal to the largest audience possible. And I think people have never been more divided. So you kind of toe a certain line when you're making music. But this is no different than, this is no different than when you look at movies. Where are the good comedy films of the last 10 years? Where are they? Where are the American Pies? Where are the Dude, Where's My Cars? Where are the Dumb and Dumbers, the good Dumb and Dumbers? Where are the edgy, super bads of the world? They aren't really made anymore. The Grandma's Boys, the Waitings, the crazy movies. So art forms, I think in general, have become a lot more sanitized. And in some ways you don't see those kind of films being made, because I think they just get shut down from a standpoint of funding, because they go, well, if you say crazy shit in these movies, it is going to probably get a lot of pushback, and it's just not going to be worth it. And I think that is the calculation that certain bands make. But there are bands that I believe are actually being rewarded by really putting themselves out there, really sort of throwing down the gauntlet, really being wild and being crazy and being bombastic and doing that. But on Josh Todd's point about rock not being dangerous, he's right to an extent. There are musicians that are coming out with that element of danger. So I wanted to touch on that. The other thing that struck me in his comments that is his focus and fixation on the radio format being the primary driver of rock music. And I would say that radio, for all of its wonderful aspects, and it's still very, very relevant, but the landscape has definitely changed for music discoverability. People aren't listening to radio to discover new music, really. I mean, most people, I think, the majority of today's society are not discovering music through radio. Not that they're not listening, but I think that the way we discover music is much more focused on your, number one, your Spotify's, your Apple Music's, your Pandora's, all of those platforms, but also your social medias, your TikToks, your YouTubes, all of that kind of stuff. It has changed. So when we hyper focus on there's no stars on the radio, it doesn't mean that you don't have prominent frontmen in rock that can post something on social media and 50 to 100,000 people are going to like it. And we're going to get to some of the people that I think are really good examples of rock. And I'm just going to warn you up ahead, it's going to piss some of you off because my view on where rock is going is probably not necessarily what some of you like rock to be. But I do think that rock music, we can all sit around and go, rock music is dying, or we can recognize that the way genres are classified is very flawed. And I believe that. And I want your honest thoughts on this, but just understand, I'm telling you how I feel, and I'm just being honest. And I've never really talked about how I think the rock format is sort of miscategorized when you look at the fact that country music is essentially 4 times bigger than rock overall commercially. And I listen to a lot of country music. I have a channel called Country Cast that also talks about country music that is focused on that genre. And I'm very passionate about country as well. And when you look at the state of country music, many of their top performers who are ultra successful, you've got mid-level country artists that do arena shows. That's how big country music is. And so many mid-level artists are selling huge numbers of tickets and doing very well in the country music format. And when you listen to a lot of these artists, they are essentially, and you don't hear this term used much anymore, but it was called Southern rock once. It was an extremely common term. And for some reason now, you don't have a lot of bands that are classified as Southern rock. And you still have them out there. You still have great bands out there that are, in my opinion, doing a good version of Southern rock. I think Saving Abel, they reunited with their vocalist Jared Weeks, and they do great Southern rock. Early Shinedown was very much, in my opinion, rooted in sort of a Southern rock sound. And that sound, I believe, is coming back in a very big way. And my point is if you go back and you look at Leonard Skinner, everyone would go, that's a rock band. And everyone still goes, that's a rock band. But then when you listen to an artist like Jason Aldean, and it's distorted guitars, solos, heavy riffs, and they go, oh, he's a country singer, his music is heavier and has more of an edge to it than what people would say. Skinner's a rock band. Of course they are. So how is Jason Aldean and artists like him, your Brantley Gilberts of the world, your Hardys? We know Hardy is rock. He's #1 charting on rock earlier this year with his record. But when you listen to 90s country and you go back, and it was much different. Your slides, your banjos, your all of that kind of stuff. But now it's absolutely distorted guitars. And so are we breaking up genres because of the subject matters being different, or what are we doing? I don't understand how we just sit back and go, rock music is dying, when I would suggest that probably a large number of you listen to country music. Let me know, maybe I'm wrong, but I would say that what constitutes country music, I don't know. I'm not saying that Kenny Chesney is rock, but I'm saying that artists like your Jason Aldean, your Hardys, your Jelly Rolls for sure, artists like them, your Co Wetzels of the world are absolutely rock, and your Co Wetzels of the world are doing arenas. And he's just considered a country guy. And this sort of country rock crossover that's been happening, I've been screaming about this for the last several years, and the industry is now very much seeing this. Not that I'm just paying attention to what other people do. I don't have anything to do with this, but I saw this happening. I think it's brilliant. I think it's exciting. And if rock music just sits back and goes, we don't have anything to do with this, then yeah, you're not going to be a part of it. And you have stars. You have stars coming out of that. You've got Co Wetzel is a superstar. Jelly Roll is a superstar. A superstar of superstars. That guy is having a meteoric rise to fame. Hardy is a superstar. And so on that point, I have issues with the categorization of rock. I don't necessarily believe that the way we classify rock music is the best way we could be talking about it. And so just sitting back and going, there's no real rock stars. Yeah, a lot of them are considered to be country now, and I don't really get it. And it comes down to program directors and things like that, and really complex aspects of this that I don't understand. I really don't know why. I'm sure there are very good reasons, but I think that you're seeing the shift and you're seeing the change. And I do think, and I hope that people are going to pick up on this. And you listen to songs like, and Chad Kroeger has actually spoke about this, where he said, Rockstar by Nickelback would be classified as a country song today if it came out. He's absolutely right. And it is. And he kind of had a little bit of a twang to his voice when he said it. But that was considered a rock song. It's so ambiguous. It's so ambiguous how we classify genres. It's really ambiguous. And so you look at the artist like Stained, and you listen to a song like So Far Away. If that came out today, that would be considered to some to be a country music song. So the way we classify this genre is definitely different. Let's talk about the danger aspect. He's right. There is a lot of music that sounds similar. I agree with him fully on that. And I thought that he was very insightful in the way he expressed that. But I do disagree that we're not seeing, I think we're on the verge of a major shift in rock right now. I really honestly believe that, where you are looking at Falling in Reverse, particularly demonstrating that Ronnie is out here. I've always, when I was a kid, there wasn't much of a difference to turning on WWE and watching Monday Night Raw and seeing my favorite pro wrestler, and then turning on television and looking at Fred Durst, who was this larger than life figure, the Marilyn Mansons, these larger than life characters. And very much you're seeing Papa of Ghost. You're starting to see that last 5 or 6 years. And look, that's a major, look at the numbers Ghost is doing. Ghost is doing crazy numbers right now. So Ghost is building a very significant global audience right now. That's a fact. Falling in Reverse is building a very significant audience. I don't know enough about what they're doing worldwide, but I know here in North America, they are popping hard. They are currently on one of the sickest, most anticipated summer tours of the year. And look at the numbers and the metrics they're doing. Now, Josh, what he's saying is there isn't that danger. I think Ronnie has that element of danger, that unpredictability, that larger than life element to him, where you're like, what's he going to do next? And so I think that he is a bright example of where rock can go. And I think with him, what you can see is that if you play it too safe, it can be to your detriment. And I would say Ronnie, at times, there doesn't seem to be anything that people can stop him, where he just really doesn't give a fuck. And there's an element of very much rock and roll to that. So for Ronnie, I think he's been very much rewarded by stepping out there and being this larger than life personality. And I do think there's smaller examples of other artists that are willing to do this as well, that I want to give a shout out to, that are very much early in their careers, that are examples. A couple of some folks that I'm looking at in rock that are really out there going for it. In the context, there's many great bands, but I'm talking about bands that are like being wild and crazy, is, again, Jelly Roll. Jelly Roll is a wild motherfucker, and I love this guy so much. He is a great guy. I've gotten to spend a lot of time with him and kick it with him, and he is just so down to earth. And when I've talked to him, he's got this country record that came out called Whitsit Chapel that debuted at number 3 on the Billboard. I believe that there is going to be a rock record from him that is specifically focused on the rock format. And I think that that's going to be a big fucking deal. And again, you go back and look at like Everlast, where you listen to some of the songs on Whitsit Chapel, they're rock songs. Where Halfway to Heaven, or Halfway to Hell actually is the song. Halfway to Hell is to me, is a rock song if you listen to it on the record. And, I compare like Need a Favor to me is the new age timeless version of What It's Like by Everlast. And what I mean by that, I'm not actually, they're very different artists. But what I mean by that is like Everlast was writing about real world shit that affects large amounts of people. And this new record from Jelly Roll is very much affecting real world, real life problems that people face each and every day. Real pain, real disappointment, real anguish. You know, he's talking about addiction, alcoholism. He's talking about people's families splitting up. He's talking about, you know, faith. He's talking about stuff you typically don't hear songs about that are a lot more ambiguous. And Jelly speaks to people in a way, in a relatable way that most people just don't. If he ain't a rock star, I don't know what is. I mean, he's a wild motherfucker. He's crazy. You know, all those fellas in Wetzel's band, from what I see on social media, are always partying and getting wild, and it's rock music. Listen to his music. It's rock music. And for some reason, we don't spend a lot of time talking about Co Wetzel. Silly Goose is a very new, very upstarting band, and Silly Goose has flashes of certainly the new metal vibe to them, where they'll go to like Waffle House and they'll start playing, or they'll go to Cracker Barrel and start playing, and they will open up mosh pits in the middle of these restaurants. And I like people that like just go for it. And this band Silly Goose, if you check them out, they are totally out here fucking going for it. And I met the singer of Silly Goose, and he told me he has watched Rockfeed for a long period of time. And I thought that was so cool, and very, very neat to hear that sort of the next generation coming into rock has spent some time watching Rockfeed. And so that's special to me. And you've got people like Jairus Johnson. Jairus Johnson gets people so mad. He talks about he's the future of rock. He's so funny. His music is great. And I understand he's working on a pretty badass hard rock and metal themed album as well. And he's a guy who he's going to do his own style, and he's absolutely going to make it unique and different. It's just gotten really hard to break through with people, and the music has changed. But I want to talk about one thing in particular about why I think rock isn't reaching as many people as it once did. In addition to the factors that we just mentioned, when you look at technology, when you look at TikTok, Call of Duty, video games, all of this shit didn't exist 30 years ago when like AC/DC was dropping shit. All you had to do back then was drive around in your car and listen to AC/DC and listen to the grunge and all that. So there really wasn't a lot to do back then. So you were like, music was like the one thing that you had. Now the entertainment landscape has expanded, and the level of attention focused on things in technology is lower than it's ever been. And so when people listen to music, they're typically probably not spending as much time, or if they are, they're focused on doing something in the background. I don't know how we'll ever be able to overcome something like that, because that gap is going to continue to grow with technological advancements. That is going to really be complicated. What I would suggest is that we need to be better at integrating music into existing technologies. We got to get better at getting rock bands on game soundtracks. I know a lot of us discovered rock bands from games like Madden and stuff, skateboarding games, Tony Hawk and stuff. I discovered Alien Ant Farm that way. And there's also another band that I forgot to mention that I think is, also has this element of danger, is Slaughter to Prevail. You look at their vocalist, Alex Terrible. That's an in-your-face, dangerous band that is really starting to pop. That was a great sign by Sumerian Records, where they have a lot of hype behind them right now. Check out Slaughter to Prevail. You'll get some early Slipknot vibes. There is danger. The dude's jacked. I think he does MMA and shit. He wrestles bears. If you haven't looked into Slaughter to Prevail, if you like metal music, check them out. That is a band, and they are building. Will any of these bands get to the level of Limp Bizkit and Korn in the late 90s where they're selling 50 million albums? I don't know. I mean, the market has changed so much, and I don't fault the artists for that. Those are like environmental factors in the industry that nobody can really do anything about. Nobody can do anything about TikTok and technology changing. Back in the day, like, you had a boombox and you would listen to music, and that was like what people did for fun. And now it's so much more complicated how people spend their time, and they're watching podcasts, and you're you're watching me rant. And, there's just a bunch of different ways. So in closing, I just want to say, I think he's right about a lot of what he said. I think that it's wrong to sort of point the finger at rock radio, because rock radio really isn't necessarily setting the agenda of rock music like they once did. They're certainly still extremely important and influential, absolutely. And there are examples of rock radio that I think do amazing work. I think Sirius XM Octane is outstanding, world class. But it's just technology changes in many ways, and so now instead of having this one central hub, you have 5 or 7 different things. You got your Spotify's, Apple Music, Pandora, whatever, Amazon, all these different services. And so people are discovering music in their own ways. It's never been more diverse in the way people discover music, but we're going to have to see where this all goes. But the one thing he's right about is we need more people, more bombastic, more character-driven stuff, more epic, more in your face. And that is the way that I think people moving forward are going to have to cut through. And on that point, at the root of what he's saying, I agree with that sentiment. And so this is just, not to say that rock isn't in a good place, not to say that there aren't a lot of great bands out there. There are a ton of great bands, but how can we elevate this genre? I think there's certainly conversations that can be had that can do that. And I commend Josh Todd for talking about that. Again, Crazy Bitch, that's a legendary song. It is. Crazy Bitch, Lit Up, all those great tunes that they put out. And I'd love to see Buckcherry again live sometime. So thank you all if you enjoyed this. I'd love to hear what you had to say in the comments. I read every comment. And also don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more updates from Rockfeed. Love you all. I appreciate you tuning in as always.